22-363 in the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-363. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
All right, that brings us back to page 648. Resolution number 22-364. Final hearing for the Kingston number 2017-2 Watershed Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-364. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 22-365, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence a suspension of Rule 3, speaker registration, Rule 4, limitations, and Rule 7, public comment procedures from the rules governing public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-365. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye. That's all me. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the final hearing for the consideration of the Kingston 2017-2 Drainage Improvement Petition. It is May 9th, 2022. There's a sign-in sheet circulating in the room that we would ask you to sign, please. And this, I will give you just a little review of what's going to happen today. The commissioners will hear a summary of the final hearing report from the county engineer and Soil and Water Conservation District. The county engineer and Soil and Water Conservation District will then cover a presentation on the project. This presentation will include additional maps, current photos of the path of the proposed construction, and pictures of similar construction to better illustrate what is being proposed. This presentation will also include a sample amortization of a construction assessment to illustrate what an 8-year repayment may look like, an explanation of maintenance assessments, and an illustration of what a percentage collection means. Copies of the county engineer's report and draft of the presentation overview of the project, including a map, were mailed to landowners so that you will be able to follow along. Following the presentation, there will be a time for questions from the Board of Commissioners. After questions, there will be time for testimony from landowners. And during testimony, right before the testimony, actually, you will be asked to take an oath. Those speaking for or against the project must be either an owner, as defined in section 6131.01 of the Ohio Revised Code, or an attorney speaking on behalf of an owner. Testimony will continue if new information comes up or additional people wish to speak. After testimony, the board will close the public hearing, and the board considers 3 things in their decision-making. 1, whether the board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary. 2, that it will be or will it be conducive to the public welfare. And the board could also find that it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvement will be less than the benefit. So at this time, I would like to call Brett Bacon, please, for an explanation and the final report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District. We have a short presentation kind of highlighting the project, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have. This is the petition language in Delaware County, Ohio, Kingston Township, within the Kingston Township Watershed, number 2017-2 watershed, and generally following but not limited to the course and termination of existing improvements on the south side of Todd Street Road. And the petition then specifically asks to improve the drainage, both surface and subsurface, to a sufficient and direct outlet. This could include replacing, repairing, or altering the existing surroundings and or creating new surface and subsurface drainage ditches, culverts, mains, or laterals as necessary. The work requested by this petition includes the area to the south of Todd Street Road in anticipation of additional water being forced upon this area via the installation of a culvert by the township. Petition was filed March 17th of 2021 by Kathy McGee and others. We held the view on June 15th, 2021, and the first hearing was August 26th of last year. The watershed is approximately 66 acres, you can see it there, and the parcels highlighted in blue are those that signed the petition. It's 39% agricultural land, 59% rural residential, and 2% road right-of-way. And the original petition was signed by 6 of the 26 parcels in the watershed. You can see the proposed center line of the project will consist of open channel 2 to 4 feet deep, clearing and snagging of brush and debris, rock line channel, drive culvert replacements, and subsurface drain installation. Come on, there we go. This is a drone flyover of the project area. This would have been the same video that we showed at the view, was taken last summer. Okay, this is a representative picture of an open channel. It's not exactly what this project would look like, but very similar in nature. This is rock line channel, simply a way to drop water down a elevation change without causing an erosion situation. Example of reseeding following subsurface drain installation. Excuse me, I'm having trouble talking this morning apparently. Cost estimate. Project's estimated cost for construction, $47,968.80. Administration, construction inspection, and drainage maintenance pay-in is $14,753.76 for a total project estimate of $62,722.56. This amount does include a contingency amount that would be added according to the construction amount. Calculating assessments. The revised code instructs the county engineer to calculate assessments to individual property owners based on the benefits received. Specifically, the revised code says lands that have been removed from their natural state by deforestation, cultivation, artificial drainage, urban development, or other man-made causes shall be considered as benefited by an improvement required to dispose of the accelerated flow of water from the uplands. That is from ORC 6131.01. Essentially, the revised code says that benefit equals use of the project. Assessments are calculated by multiplying the acres benefited times the land use factor times the percent use to get the parcel assessment factor. Parcel percent share is equal to the parcel assessment factor divided by the sum of all the parcel assessment factors, and then the parcel assessment is that percent share times the total estimated cost. Properties have a couple options to pay their assessment. That payment can be made in full upfront within 30 days of the final hearing, which would be by June 8th, 2022, and notice also must be given, the notice of intent, by May 30th, 2022. Parcels can also have their assessment placed on a property tax bill as a special assessment, and having that done will also incur interest and other fees if the project is bonded. Amortization example. This would assume no upfront payments to the project. So our total estimated cost minus direct assessments is $59,422.56. We do have a direct assessment to Kingston Township for work directly within the road right-of-way. The average or the mean assessment, not including the right-of-way parcel, is $2,201 or a 3.5% share of the project. Debt issuing fees average around $8,000 for a project like this. Bond interest, estimating that at 4%, can be a little bit more, a little bit less. That would be $2,696.90 for a total, giving us a total estimated cost for the project of $7,119.46. 3.5% of this amount is $2,454.18. 2%, the auditor collects 2% on all special assessments for their collection fee. That would be $49.08. So the total assessment for our average parcel would be $2,503.26. If you extend this out over an 8-year repayment schedule, 16 semi-annual payments, that would be a payment of $156.45 each half for 8 years. Bidding and construction. All approved projects are advertised for public bid. The lowest and best bid is awarded the contract. Projects of this nature are not typically subject to prevailing wage. Bids may not be accepted that are in excess of the final hearing engineer's estimate. That is something that's different for these projects versus some other projects that the board sees. The final schedule assessments would be reduced pro rata between the difference between the estimated cost and the final cost if the project is constructed for less than the engineer's estimate. Upfront payments would receive a refund in this case. Drainage maintenance. ORC 6137 requires all completed projects to be placed onto the drainage maintenance program. The purpose of maintenance is to keep the project operating at its original designed capacity. Maintenance funds are collected as a special assessment, much like the construction assessments, and common maintenance activities include inspections, seeding, repairs, and erosion control. Maintenance assessments are determined based on the final schedule of construction assessments. Most of our projects will average between a 2% and a 5% collection annually, and that collection percentage can vary depending on the maintenance needs of the watershed. Drainage maintenance, finally, is perpetual. It lasts forever. Going back to our amortization example, if we take our $2,201 construction assessment, maintenance assessments are not calculated against the amount that would have the interest and debt issuing fees onto it. It's just the amount for construction. Using a 3% example, plus our auditor treasurer fees, that gives us a $67.35 annual maintenance assessment. And you can see there that that divides into $33.68 a half. So you see for the first 8 years of the project, they would have a construction assessment of $156.45 plus the annual maintenance assessment of $33.68 for each half. Once the construction assessment is paid off, it would just be the $33.68 maintenance assessment each half. Cost benefit. Benefits of drainage improvements exist for both agricultural and residential parcels. The benefit to agricultural parcels is realized by increased yield as a result of good drainage. Estimated yield increases given the soils in the area would average 46 bushels per acre for corn and 14 bushels per acre for soybeans given the appropriate drainage improvements are in place. USDA average crop price from 2016 to 2020 for corn is $3.87 per bushel, and for soybeans it's $9.66 per bushel. 26 acres of land in the watershed is currently agricultural. So that would be a $4,629 annual benefit for corn, or a $3,516 annual benefit for soybeans, for an average annual benefit of $4,072. Benefits to residential parcels focus on quality of life, neighborhood perception, and home site sewage treatment systems. A failed home site sewage treatment system can cost $15,000 to $25,000 to repair or replace. New developments average between $1,000 to $3,000 per lot spent on providing adequate drainage outlets. With 22 residential parcels in the watershed, that would be a $22,000 to $66,000 benefit at a minimum. Options before the commissioners today, pretty simple for this project. You can approve the project or deny the project. There are no laterals as we would typically see on some of our projects. Approval will require setting repayment period and whether to bond, confirming the schedule of assessments, and ordering the project to be advertised for competitive bid. If the decision is to deny, it is recommended to distribute costs incurred to this point to the landowners in the same ratio as determined by the final schedule of assessments. Estimated costs to date are $1,300. Engineer's recommendation. Based on all of the information gathered and generated, I believe this project as proposed is technically feasible and would serve as an adequate outlet for the drainage needs of the watershed. Furthermore, the parcel assessments for this project are within the range of assessments that can be expected for a project of this scope. The testimony brought to the Board of Commissioners by the landowners as to whether the benefits of this project exceed the cost should be given significant consideration in the decision to move forward with this project. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions?
Yeah, Brett, you had mentioned the Kingston Township culvert project.
Yes.
What's the status of that?
As far as I know, I could let Doug Riedel comment on that if he'd like, but it is moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioners. Doug Riedel from the County Engineer's Office. The Kingston Township trustees had approved an estimate for our drainage crew to replace the culvert. I believe at this point we've ordered the materials because of obviously issues with supply has been a concern. So we went ahead and ordered the materials, and we're going to time the construction for the culvert to be, relatively close to if this project were approved. Otherwise, it'll be sometime this fall.
Okay, that was going to ask, that was my follow-up question, is how timing-wise. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
I have a couple.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, in looking at the map, I think I know the answer, but just, is the township supportive of this or not?
I can't.
Were they a petitioner, I guess?
No, the township was not a petitioner.
Okay, because they were kind of on the edge, and I couldn't
Yeah,
determine from
yeah.
that whether they were in or out,
Right,
or
yeah.
no opinion. Question I do have, all these are a little different, and the fact that this has been declined fairly recently, I think that is a factor in my evaluation. But you talked about the ag area and the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
In looking at the map, all the ag areas seems to be upstream. So the benefits that are being identified here may not be accurate if they're already draining down. That's a kind of a question. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you make sense.
So is that benefit possibly overstated?
No, I would disagree with that. The good drainage requires an adequate outlet. We know that the tile is blocked down as it gets down to Todd Street Road. I know there are issues with the tile system as it goes upstream towards the ag ground. I don't know to what degree that breakdown in the tile system is affecting the productivity of the ag land. Obviously, when we do that cost-benefit analysis, we're giving you kind of an aerial view. We like to refer to it as the 30,000-foot view. Those studies, those numbers, I mean, that has been as a result of years and I'll say decades of research by not only Ohio State, but other land-grant universities. So I mean, I can't comment on specifically what the benefits that the ag ground or those specific parcels are receiving, but I don't think it's fair to say that the benefits to ag ground as we have presented them are overstated. I mean, just because they're in the upper part of the watershed, they still rely on that adequate outlet to fully realize the benefits that they may have from their
But
drainage.
because they are upstream, it's reasonable to assume that all the benefits may not accrue that would be typical of some of the other presentations we do.
No, I don't think that's accurate to say that.
Okay.
No.
And again, every one of these is different, but in my
Absolutely.
view,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I accept what I just heard, but I understand it. How do you determine an average parcel? I assume it's just the average, you take it all
Average,
divided by,
straight.
which is not probably, that affects every one of these people differently than.
Right. Nope. That
No one
is
considers
a
themselves
simple
average.
average. Yep.
So,
Average as we were probably all taught in second or third grade.
Okay.
Just a straight average of those parcels.
Okay, that's all I have at this time.
Okay.
I do have one more thing, I apologize. I do have one more, because
Yeah.
my first question actually, what has changed from the first petition to this one that should change the view of the commissioners on this?
The scope of the petition is different. The previous petition included work on the north side of Todd Street Road, extending up to the ag ground. So that first petition was I don't remember numbers not right in my head, but it was significantly more expensive because of that work, and with the new petition requesting a different scope of work. Basically, the improvements are just now south of Todd Street Road with just a little bit of work on the north side to pick up the subsurface drain. The project has gotten significantly less expensive.
Okay.
Okay, I have no questions. And we will begin our testimony then from those affected by the project. And would anyone like to speak in favor of the project? If you would, if you could come up to the microphone, I will swear you in. Yes. Could you just state your name and address, and then I'll swear you in?
Absolutely. My name is Kathy McGee. I'm at 9232 Todd Street Road.
Okay, and your parcel number again is?
Just, she's really asking for your map number, not, you don't.
Or your
need
map
home
number,
house
yeah.
I am, I believe 25 on here.
Okay.
Am I advancing this myself? Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, I will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Absolutely.
All right, you may proceed.
I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
And if you could use your mic some too, sometimes Brett was very clear, but when you come up, sometimes our audio could be better, but anyway, just make sure that you are clear and loud enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. My name is Kathy, and I want to thank you for your time this morning and hearing our request. And I'm hoping to present to you a clear picture of the situation that we have and the request that we need. So we're here today to talk about the water drainage issue on Todd Street Road, more specifically about a culvert that's being installed by the township that will bring the water from the north to the south side. And we're looking for a resolution for this and not just moving the problem from one place to another. So a little bit of history. You had asked about the previous petition. The previous petition was done in 2018, and it was submitted by Dave Smith. We were seeking to improve the issue on both the north and the south sides. That petition was divided into two phases, the north phase and the south phase. And the south phase needed to pass in order for the north phase to be considered. So in other words, the south phase had to have the improvements made in order for the water to flow from the north to south. That petition was turned down. The difference this time is we're asking for improvements to be made on the south side because of the culvert that's coming in. That same water will be coming our way. As noted earlier, we are not set up to handle that additional water. So our ask is we are requesting assistance to bring the ditch area south of Todd Street Road to a sufficient state to accept the additional water from the culvert installation and take that water to a direct and adequate final outlet. So this is the overview. As you can see, the vast majority of the watershed is to the north of Todd Street Road. By installing the culvert, that water is going to be coming to the south and funneling into that one small area that kind of looks like a shoe. So all of that will come into that small area. The red circle there is indicating where the culvert will be installed. The red line below that circle is the end of the jurisdiction that the township has. So they would clear the ditch just to that first driveway, which happens to be ours, and then that would be it. We're not capable of carrying this water, but ideally, what would happen is the water would flow down the common access drive and then cut between Beth and Ben's property and go on to the creek behind their house. You saw at the viewing, and again today, the drone that covered that area. It didn't look bad in that picture, but that was in the middle of the summer, and it was nice. When it's not nice out, this is what it looks like. And as you can see from that picture, hopefully you can see, the water on the north side actually reaches from the right side of that photo to the left side of that photo. So there's a significant amount of water that we're talking about. These are more recent pictures. This is from the south side view. The picture on the right would be as if I was standing on the new culvert once it would be installed. The picture to the left is our home. You can see how much water we already have. And if we were to add more water to that, it would be even more impactful. So overall, this is the water that we're looking at, plus more, because you're only seeing what's on the surface. We've replaced our sump pumps in our home 3 times in the 9 years that we've been there. Last summer, we had installed a bigger pit and a better pump on the west side with anticipation of the possibility of receiving the additional water. So we wanted to be as prepared as we could. So we had the basement doctor come in, they built a bigger pit and a better pump. That cost me $9,413 to have that done. The water that was coming out of there ran across my property and onto my neighbors, which of course I did not want. So we ended up taking that line and running it across the entire front yard over to the ditch area. So now it is putting water into that ditch, which isn't sufficient now, let alone if we have additional water added to that ditch. Moving on. So we're talking about all of this water coming into one one culvert at the end of that CAD. And without improvements, we won't be able to handle that amount. And all it's doing is just moving the problem from one neighbor to another. And again, we're looking for a win-win situation, something that will handle the problem not only today, but for the future and for everybody involved. We need to channel that water to an adequate outlet, which is the creek behind our homes. So back to the ditch. The water would come down the drainage ditch. That red mark is where the jurisdiction from the township ends. So all of that water will come to our driveway and stop. So we will be first impacted. That's how close our home is to the ditch. It's a mere 3 car lengths. I have owned several homes throughout my lifetime, and I'm hopefully not jinxing myself today, but I have never experienced flooded water in my basement, and I'm very fearful for that if this doesn't pass. So after it impacts us, it will continue down the CAD. The idea is that the west ditch joins the east ditch via that culvert there. We'll talk about the health concerns later. And then from the east ditch, it goes through another culvert that, as I mentioned earlier, goes between Ben's and Beth's house back to the creek. This is another view of where those culverts would go through under the driveways there. We have a hard time at times handling the amount of water that we already have, and this area will often become flooded when that happens. And again, that's without the additional water. And when it does flood, this is what it looks like. So the back part of that CAD is not accessible. I've often seen Ben and Chad on both sides yelling at each other in the morning, hey, looks like we're not going to work today. You know, our concerns are about emergency needs. That's Beth's house. And I'm sorry. Beth is a foster mom. This is Beth. She has children with needs, and I see cars coming to and from her house every day, providing healthcare assistance, medical needs, and being home for the pandemic. It broke my heart one morning. I saw a car trying to get to her house, and it was this situation. And the car would creep forward into the water and then back up. And then it would creep forward and back up, trying to decide whether it could get through that water. And it did it like 5 or 6 times. Finally, it just gunned it and made it to her house. But I thought, that's how important it must be for that person or that vehicle to get to her house, to help her take care of her children. And it just impacted me that morning. So, this is what it often looks like without the additional water. And this is from Beth's point of view. So this is looking up the CAD. This is what she sees outside her window. And I think about what goes through her head sometimes. Yeah, it can be. We have been working with the Kingston Township for over a year now. The trustees do support this petition. I have a letter from Bill Shively. You have it on record here. I have it as part of this presentation later on. Like I said, they do support us. And I want you to know that we have pursued other options before this petition. We've talked to the township about turning over the CAD. That apparently was an option at one time. But then we later found out that that wasn't permitted. We talked about a work agreement with the township, and then later found out that that wasn't possible. So we went ahead and obtained a bid on our own to see if we could handle the cost on our own. That was done in 2019, and I have a copy. You have a copy of the quote in hand. I also have it part of this presentation later on. In 2019, we got a quote for $14,200. That was for only a third of the project. That would clear the ditch from the end of the jurisdiction from the township, which is basically my driveway, down to the end of the culvert. That did not take it across to the other side and back to the creek. So it's $14,200 for a third of the project, which included 3 culverts. We have single mothers, single income families that cannot bear that cost. In addition, that project, or if that work was done, there would be no maintenance involved. So we would be having to revisit this more than just the one time here. And again, that project, or that quote would not take the water all the way to the creek, which would not solve the issue at all. So we are asking the commissioners today, we're seeking a comprehensive resolution to the problem, and if the petition was passed, we would be able to properly control and channel the water to a sufficient outlet, and it would also provide the maintenance that would be needed so that we didn't have to keep revisiting the same issue. We have health and safety concerns. As you saw in the one picture, there are curtain drains at the end of that CAD. This applies to the homes on and off of that CAD. It's not just the homes that are tied to that shared driveway. It's other homes in the neighborhoods as well, in our neighborhood as well. And you also have the flooding of the basements that would produce mold and mildew, which is an additional hardship on families, especially during the pandemic. And then back to the safety concerns, again, emergency situations. I know I have 2 young grandchildren that I'm blessed come and visit me. They stay at grandma's for the weekend, usually 2 weekends a month. And I've thought, what would I do if I ever could not get them out of my driveway if I needed to get them help for something? And it's a concern. It makes me anxious sometimes. And then I think about Beth, who deals with it every day. We often can't get to and from work, school. We're unable to get the necessities or needed health care, especially in Beth's situation when that floods. Again, she's a single mother with foster children. They need daily medical deliveries from healthcare providers and special transportation that's needed to and from her home. So again, our ask is we want to resolve the issue. We're requesting assistance to bring the ditch area south of Todd Street to a sufficient state in order to accept the additional water from the culvert installation and take that water to a direct and adequate final outlet. And we need your help to do this. So we ask you, will you help us?
Thank you. Are there questions?
I have
On the commission.
two questions. Question number one, just for clarification, the cost in 2019 was 42.6 times 3, 14.2 times 3. You said it's a third of the cost. The other 2 parties, you weren't able to, the parties involved were not able to do the project, what you're saying, at that cost.
I'm not sure I understand. The
You said in 2019, the quote
14,200.
for a private quote was 14.2, and that was a third of the cost of the project. But the project was never done.
The project was never
I'm asking the
done.
reason it was never done, I assume because of cost.
It was never done because of cost, and it didn't solve the problem.
I got you. I have a question for Brett, but I'll pose that question later. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Real quick, Commissioners, we handed out some maps just for everybody's clarity. The first map that Sarah handed out was actually the map from the viewing. Those ID numbers don't correspond to the ID numbers on the schedule of assessments. So I will hand out to everybody the correct map and make sure that you guys have the correct map. Ms. McGee is parcel number 25 on your assessment spreadsheet and on the correct map. So I just wanted to make sure everybody.
These assessments are correct or incorrect?
Yes, those assessments are correct.
Brett, I have a question while you're standing there. May I?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Just so we're all, trying to make sure we're all on the same page as we evaluate this, Ms. McGee said that the culvert will add additional water. Is that an accurate statement, or is it just, the water's not created, so?
Correct.
So
correct.
adding additional water, is just that it comes in a quicker pace than it
Yeah.
would normally?
Water right now with no culvert under Todd Street Road, there is a low spot there. There probably should have always been a culvert there. That water now ponds on the north side of Todd Street Road. The addition of the culvert will allow that water to flow freely
faster.
as it should through that area and downstream. Right now, it either jumps watershed and goes into the adjacent watershed, which is the Ribav number 620 watershed, or it tries to go out through the existing subsurface drain, which doesn't have a good and adequate outlet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the petition? If you would come forward, please.
I'm gonna lay one up here too, just so. Sorry about that. That's all right.
I'm Beth Thurston, and I'm number 13. My address is 9240 Todd Street Road. As you can see,
Okay, I'm going to swear you in then.
Okay.
Do you solemnly, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Since Kathy addressed my name several times there, I figured I should go next. As she said, I am a foster parent to medically fragile adults. I was fostering children, and as they grew up, I kept them, so now I do shared parenting. My son is a quadriplegic with traumatic brain injury, and so he's on a respirator, and he has a trach and a G-tube and other health issues. With his respiratory issues, the mold issue is an extreme concern for me. So obviously, anytime my basement floods, my first issue is to go downstairs and immediately treat all of the wood with bleach and clean up as well as possible. As I get older, treating this basement is becoming a bigger issue. But this last flood was the worst. For whatever reason, it seems like the floods are getting deeper. The water is coming in faster, and I don't know if it's because the ground is degrading or, you know, as the land starts to change and degrade a little bit. But my property, over the 20 years that I've lived there, I'm now getting larger areas in my yard that are flooding that didn't used to have like piles or puddles that have stayed there. So I've got like 4 different areas in my yard that just stay wet almost continuously now that didn't used to. Areas that I can't cut. And when it gets rainy outside, it used to be, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times a year my basement would flood, but most of the time I didn't really worry about it raining. Now, almost every time it rains, I can anticipate that I'm going to get some flooding. And if it rains hard, I can guarantee I will get flooding, because when it rains fast, the water cannot be taken care of by the means that we have right now, because it comes down hard and fast, and the water doesn't move, can't get taken care of quickly enough to get out of the way. Now, eventually, over time, it gets out of the way, but when it comes down fast, it fills those, and as you saw the pictures, everything's flooded, and it does eventually get out of the way, but for several hours, you're stuck in your home, you can't move. This last flood, I had 4 feet of water in my basement. My sump pumps were underwater completely. They quit, so then no water was coming out. I had to hire somebody to bring in a construction grade pump and a generator and put it through the window from outside to be able to get the water out of my basement enough just to get my sump pumps working again. And even then, one of them quit because it had been underwater too long, so I had to replace 2 sump pumps. I usually have 3 sump pumps, 2 in the sump pump wells and a third one sitting on top of the floor so that when the water gets deeper, it can get it so that they're not underwater anymore. And this has been for 20 years. I had 2 backup sump pumps, and they were a joke because they're supposed to be good for 12 hours. Well, that's 12 hours for a normal basement. They're $300 a piece, and in a normal basement, that would be great, and you could use them over and over again. In our basements, or at least mine, and probably yours and yours, when you use these backup sump pumps, you put it in there, and with the amount of water that there is, you use it once, and 12 hours is really for a normal basement. So for ours, you use it once, and with the amount of water, it's done for. You got to throw it away and get a whole new one. And at $300 every flood, several times a year, you just can't afford to use them. I purchased a backup water sump pump system, and I used that, and it cost me $700 in my water bill for 1 flood. I've paid the gentleman that lived in Kathy's house before she lived there to do some work for me to try and redirect the water in different directions so that all the water didn't hit one place at one time in order to help, and it ended up flooding my neighbor. So it's not like we haven't tried different options before doing this, like Kathy mentioned. Since she touched on, my handicapped children, at one time I had 4 handicapped children in my home. I'm down to 2. The other 2 are gone because the one child's mother decided that she didn't want her child to be at risk because of the flooding. There were other issues as well, but that was the main one, and she removed her child from my home after I'd had her for 18 years, which was heartbreaking because as far as I was concerned, she was my daughter. I'd had her since she was 6. I'm sorry. It's been a very difficult situation, and it's not just the water, I'm not saying that, but when I bought the property, I thought I was being really smart about it. I said, I checked and made sure it wasn't a flood zone, and it's still not considered a flood zone, which is funny in my opinion, but it's not a flood zone, even though I get flooding all the time. But if I were to try and sell my house, I wouldn't be able to legitimately sell it without telling people that it floods, and I can't fix the problem before I sell it because there's no answer. I don't know what to do about it. And this is something that's going to help immensely, or at least I certainly hope it will. It will at least drastically reduce the amount of flooding. And where I am, I'm probably still going to have some problems, but I think that it will reduce it immensely. I have a huge basement that I can't use. And, when I built the house, I built it with that big basement because I intended to use it, and it's just a waste space. It's just a great big cold swimming pool. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. The big issue is that between the yard and the driveway being flooded, it is a major health issue. My staff can't get to me sometimes, and when you've got quadriplegics in your home that need nursing staff, and I can take care of them, but when you're doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they need care constantly, you get tired. And I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's gotten to the point where with the pandemic, I was having staff problems to the point where I didn't have staff for days on end, and I can't provide the amount of care that they deserve, that they need, and it's not fair to them. And it all comes back to not being able to get staff in the house because there's flooding. It comes back to the fear of, are they healthy because is there mold in the house that I can't smell yet, but it's still growing in the walls? Can it be in my drywall, Well, he goes to a day hab. I have a foster son who's profoundly autistic and ADD, and also DD. And he goes to a day hab during the day, Monday through Friday, for a few hours a day. And several times the bus has come and sat at the end of the driveway because she's afraid to come through it. So I purchased a truck, and I put him in the truck and drive to the end of the driveway so that he can still go. As long as I have a nurse to watch the other one so that I can do it. But if he doesn't go to day hab, he has temper tantrums, and he will literally bang his head on the floor and harm himself because he's so profoundly autistic that he has to stick to his schedule, and he will harm himself. So it's important that I get him out there. So there again, I got the truck for that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Are there questions?
Question. On average, how many times do you think your home floods a year?
I mean, some years are different than others.
Over the last 5 years, how many times?
At least 25.
We've had a lot of rain in the last month. Has it flooded in the last month?
I had 4 feet. That picture she showed, I had 4 feet that time.
This was in the last 30 days? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes. Anything else?
Any other questions? I have no questions. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the petition?
Hello.
Hello.
Eric Motter, 9164 Todd Street. I am, let's see, number 5 on this map, 18 on the other map that I have. So one of those numbers.
Okay, okay. And if you'll raise your right hand, I will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that your testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Wanted to thank the commissioners for allowing us to be here today. Thank you, appreciate this. Also wanted to give you a perspective of someone who doesn't live on the CAD. So I am not on the, as you can see there, I'm on the, I've got a separate driveway. I'm not inside the CAD. But I do want to tell you how I'm impacted by this water. So as that amount of water comes down through, the creek overflows, right? And so it backs up through. It goes behind Ben and Summer's house, it goes behind Beth's house, and then eventually comes through, the Denowitz's house also, and then eventually comes down through mine. And so it will completely cover my house. So it pretty much puts us in a moat, all right? And then it, at that point, jumps over into the other watershed. So the Ribav Watershed, which also is a project that I think you all are taking a look at, that water streams across and into that other watershed and continues on down through. What it covers for me, and this is where I have large impact, is my leach field in the front of my house and my septic and sewer system. So much as Brett mentioned prior, for that $22,000 improvement to a septic field, that's where I'm impacted. Over the last 5 years, I've seen substantial erosion to my front yard because of the amount of water that comes there, and then I can't get rid of it, right? That water initially goes to a lift station that's inside my yard, which has a sump pump there. That picks it up and goes across and into that CAD ditch. And so if those ditches are full with water, I have nowhere for the water, for my water to go to. It just ponds in my front yard right over top of my septic field. So I have great concerns about what that is going to do long-term to the septic field. And additionally, as Beth said, if I was to take to move or to sell the house, it would be a very difficult proposition to try to say, hey, I can't get rid of water here. You can move in, just don't use the bathrooms. Yes, again, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I just wanted you to hear a perspective of someone that's outside of the CAD that's still impacted.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the commission?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the petition?
Dave Smith, 9225 Todd Street Road, number 21.
21. All right. If you will raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right, yeah, I've been through this once before on the previous petition that failed, supposedly due to costs. I've been there 24 years, and you saw the pictures there of that Kathy presented with the lake in the front yard. That's my front yard, and I mean, just doing rough calculations on our side, probably looking at millions of gallons of water. I mean, Brett might be able to answer that a little bit more, but water comes mainly across those farm fields, which are 1, 2, and 15. It'll come across John Breckenridge's property at 16, about in the middle, and then all of it lands in my front yard, where then it's choked down by the common drive to the west of me, west of 21, and flows off the watershed down to a subsurface drain. So for at least my 24 years I've been there, water basically stays on the north side and won't travel to the south side on the surface at all until you get down to jump the watershed, and it travels somewhere unknown to me, subsurface, down there past number 17 to the west of 17. So the township's putting in the culvert, which will allow my water that comes across from the farm fields through John's, which is, you know, a good chunk of the water that comes, that you see on the surface, you know, it comes fairly quickly after, you know, heavy or even moderate rains, you know, depending on what time of the year it is. If the ground's saturated, it comes on a little quicker than in the summertime, like in July or August. But, and I mean, everybody on that north side, as you can tell from the watershed, is, whether they know it or not, is draining into, you know, draining to the south there, to my property and a couple other people's property. But just the noticeable stuff is coming from the west, or from the east to the west, off the farm fields and across the field, you know, across John's property and into mine. Yeah, I would probably say 20 to 30 times a year you'll see a lake like that in my front yard. So, and my guesstimate's millions of gallons. It has, you know, in 24 years gotten a lot worse. When I first moved there, it wasn't, you know, maybe once, twice, handful of times a year, it would get, you know, a lake there. But as you add driveways and choke down points and erosion and, I mean, silt, I mean, if you look at the ditches on Todd Street Road now, they're probably about a foot or two, you know, less deep than when they were 20 years ago. But all that water, I mean, I've dealt with it for 24 years. You know, flooded driveway. I mean, we just don't buy cars. We buy Jeeps or trucks or something that sits up high. And in the wintertime, when that water's flooded like that and it freezes, it's a big ice rink. But we just dealt with it. But that water is all going to go to the south now in a ditch, and it will affect those people on the south. Like I said, I've dealt with it, but I don't know if they'll be able to deal with it. As you heard with the problems with the basements and whatnot, until it's actually happens, if you guys turn down the petition and they put the culvert in, you know, we'll see what happens. But until then, we won't know, but I got a really good guess that millions of gallons of water will flow under that road and hit that ditch and not have anywhere to go. I mean, it will eventually, over days or weeks, drain down, but I just, I mean, the neighborly thing to do, you know, I've dealt with it, and, you know, I can handle it over there. You know, I don't have problems with my basement flooding or anything else, but I've dealt with it. But I don't know if they'll be able to deal with all that water going to the south, you know. And as, you know, as a neighborly thing to do, I'm for the petition. Most of the problem, in my opinion, is coming from the farm fields. And I know you addressed that as a concern for the thing, and yes, they're draining, whether this thing goes or not, but it would definitely help get that water out a lot faster if they put that, or they improve the ditches, especially on the south side of the street, and, you know, directly I would have benefit from the subsurface drain. Subsurface drain, right now, it is up there on like between 16 and 15. It just blows out of the ground 4 or 5 feet like a geyser when you're, you know, on the good rains. And then, you know, once it starts to die down, it'll die down, but it causes a lot of subsurface to go surface, which is not the intent of it. It's supposed to drain off slowly, but when it comes, it comes. So the intent for the subsurface is on the west side of my driveway is to come across and dump into an open ditch, which is going to greatly benefit me particularly, all the farmland, and keep from getting blowouts at number 16 there. So, that's about all I got. I hope you guys pass this and we just can put it behind us once and for all and
Any questions?
Go on.
Just basically observations, but
Yeah.
anything. But looking at the map, it doesn't look like you were one of the original petitioners, but you are supportive of the project. Is that an accurate statement?
I am supporting the project.
The
I
map
was the
we
original
have, you were
petitioner.
not an original petitioner, but it seems you are supporting the project,
Yeah, I was never,
based on looking at this map.
oh, correct. I was I just, for whatever reason, was never given a chance to sign the petition. I would have signed the petition if they,
Appreciate it.
yeah, and the previous hearing, I came forward for it too. I don't know, I just feel bad. I know what it's like it's been 24 years I've had water in my yard and I had to drive the kids to the bus, out front, whatever. But, it's a shit ton of water and it's coming. I'm just telling you, in my opinion, the stuff they're putting in, I know engineers make it all and stuff, and it's gonna be tough for that to handle, the big rains. The big rains, you're screwed no matter what, but it's coming. And all that water is going across that road, and it's going to that blue area, and they're gonna be affected by it. And
Okay.
it's just
Any
the
more
fact.
questions?
Yeah, I had a
Any
question,
Yeah.
Mr. Smith. You said your yard typically ponds 20 times a year.
20 to 30 times a year, yeah.
How long does it take for that pond to disappear typically?
For the big water, probably a day, 24-hour period. And then the subsurface, like the ditch up there, we have that subsurface that catches a little bit, but most of the subsurface is backup water, but then the subsurface, probably another 24 hours to get the ditch, the ditch fills up, and then to get that down, because there's no pitch on the ditch to go to across the road. So it just has to go into that 8-inch tile. And so I'd say 2 days total time to get it out. We still have ponding in there, but nothing,
Any
the
other-
main water takes about 24 hours to completely clear off.
Thank you, sir.
All fine.
Thank you.
Yep, no
Okay,
problem.
no other questions? Does anyone else wish to speak in favor of the petition?
My name is John Breckenridge. I am there in 16,
Okay. And your address, sir?
9309 Todd Street.
Okay, and I will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
I am for the petition, against the petition. I'm kind of in the middle there. What everybody's not understanding that, like Dave said, 2, 15, and 1, we're getting all that water coming out of one area, not in the middle part of my property. And Lord knows we haven't had the rains before like we have in the last 6, 7 years. Hadn't been like that. But that water starts coming through there in the blown tile. And it takes 9 minutes to run from my property over to Dave's and flood everything. We have talked to the farmer about it, and he said he put in a new tile if he has a place to run it to. But he has no place to run it to, unless they go through with this. These big rains that we've had, it floods, and it'll stay up to 2 days. A large area of the backyard is flooded. You can't get to the complete back. Can't get to the kids' go-kart track or anything back there. And it's just, it's all coming out of one area, seems to be, because we're getting subsurface and surface water because of the blown tiles. We can't get the tile fixed because the excavators say they have nowhere to run it to, so they won't do it. And that's just about it. We get that fixed, and I don't know what they're gonna do with all the water. I don't think the tile that they're putting under the road is gonna handle it all. They're gonna have to do something with the ditches or something.
Do you farm your area?
No.
Any other
No, I
questions?
just mow it.
I'm sorry?
I just mow it.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Would anyone else, Brett, did you have it? Just a second. Go ahead, Brett.
I just wanted to give a note of clarification. A lot of comments about the engineering. The culvert under the road, as well as the our project design, is designed to handle a 10-year storm, and that would be consistent with the county engineer's standards for common access drives and for the road culvert on Todd Street Road because of the traffic count. So I just wanted to give that note of clarification of what the storm threshold was.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
My name is Ben DeWitt. I am parcel number 12. So I'm the guy that gets all the water, basically, is what it comes down to.
And your address, sir?
It's 9244 Todd Street Road.
Okay, I will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, just to kind of go on John and Dave's note, they talk about, the farmland 1 and 15 parcel getting that water. That's just one side of the water they get. I've been there 20 years, just as long as these guys have. So I've seen this ditch get so bad to where it actually floods up the woods behind my house. I mean, it literally takes over that back. By the standing of this map, if you go to my parcel from all the way to the left, that's all underwater when we have a good spring. Like Rachel, that used to live back in the woods in that property back there, she can't do anything. She couldn't do anything because it got so much water. Now, the other thing is too, is the little big Walnut Creek that you see kind of in there in the map actually runs directly into this ditch culvert pipe. So from the water they get from their farmland, that creek is getting the farmland off this map. So like to the southeast of this, all this farmland over here towards Marengo is running right into this little big Walnut Creek. So when we get all this rain like they're all talking about and them two creeks collide, that's where we get all the flooding in our basically driveways to where I can't go to work, kids can't go to school, nurses and stuff can't get to her. I mean, we're in 3 to 4 foot of water. I have a Chevy Suburban and it comes up past my doors sometimes out of that ditch. When I first moved there, I had 3 floods in my basement, like she said, 4 feet of water. I'm up till midnight sometimes dumping buckets out the back. It's just a lot of water. And I'm for this petition about helping everybody out, solving everything. But my only concern is when we put these bigger culvert pipes in here, all that water is gonna drain to my property. And with the smaller culvert piping that's in there now, it floods up as much as it does. Just think if you put a bigger pipe in there and have more water come down to my side, and then that creek floods up, my property is gonna get more damages than anything. And then it's gonna back up to hers on her property. So my main concern is just, what do I do if we go with this petition and all of a sudden I get property damages or car vehicle damage? Because there's some times where it's, 20 feet from my driveway and it's just gonna come in. So
I can have Brett address that.
well, I mean, we've talked, like I said, we've talked where them two creeks meet. To me, it looks like the guy who bought the parcels to sell the land, that was his only option, was to go across the back to drain everyone's drains into that creek because he didn't own the property behind it.
So you're in favor of the petition?
Oh, yeah, I'm in total favor to help everyone out to get this water out of here because, like I said, if you go, when we get a good rain, look behind my house, it's like Dave's property. It's just pond after pond after pond. All the way across, 7 to 10 acres of just water.
Okay. Brett, just comment on that. Thank you.
So, as I stated, this project's designed to handle a 10-year storm in this watershed. When we get a major rain event, we'll say 2 to 3 inches over a short period of time. And for the sake of this example, we'll assume that happens not only on this watershed, but also over the watershed for Little Walnut Creek. The time it takes for the peak flow or that major amount of water flow within this little I say little compared to the watershed for Little Walnut Creek. The time it takes for that to run off and be downstream is a much shorter time. We refer to that as time of concentration. It's a much shorter time than what the larger watershed is. So by the time the water has run off from this sub-watershed, if you will, it's done and gone before the peak flow comes from upstream. There are, and I apologize for not knowing this exactly, it's been a while since I actually looked at the number. There's about 5,000 acres of watershed on Little Walnut Creek upstream of this point. So when we get a large rain event over that amount of area, that's a flooding event. There's nothing we can't control that. And there will be times that Little Walnut Creek is going to flood. I mean, it is, I think it was Ms. Thurston referred to the lack of a flood zone. She's correct. It is not mapped in a FEMA floodplain, but every channel, down to our smaller creeks and ditches, up to what I would consider, this is obviously a natural stream. There's flood zone there. There's floodway. We see it in floodplain soils. You can observe it in topography. Every channel has a floodplain associated with it. Now, what the rationale is for FEMA not extending the flood zone study up that far, I don't know. It's been a question that's been asked many times around our office and the department of the building department and the engineer's office, and honestly, nobody really has a good answer for that. It's a question for FEMA, but those flood events, yes, they will continue to happen, but it's not going to be as a result of the work within this watershed. This is about getting water from point A to point B. We feel we've presented you a project that will do that in an efficient manner that meets the county engineer standards. Honestly, the work that we're proposing here is work that, if this came in for development today, this work would have been required. It would have been undertaken by the developer. This area was developed at a time when those standards weren't in place. They were different requirements, different standards. Unfortunately, this work now falls to the landowners to request to be done through this process. It's really their only option of getting the work performed. But as far as it's kind of a difference between drainage versus flooding. There will still be flooding occur. My hope would be, with the project that we've presented, that frequency, that they're going to see that less. But, as we like to say in our office, Mother Nature bats last. There's going to come a rainfall event that exceeds our design standards that we can't anticipate or can't, it's not cost effective to try and anticipate.
But this will substantially improve the situation.
In our opinion, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of a question, just based on all the conversation and topics. Putting the culvert in and then doing this drainage project wouldn't overwhelm Little Walnut Creek?
No.
For most rain events?
Yes, no. I'm trying to remember. I just looked at this number the other day. I think our channel is designed, or the capacity is, let's say, right around 68 or 69 cubic feet of water per second, CFS. That's what the culvert's designed for. That's what the channel and the culverts that were being proposed under the CAD are designed to handle. That's their capacity. The flow capacity, I'm going to throw out a wild number here because I have not done the analysis, but 5,000 acres of watershed on that same 10-year storm is going to be, in the thousands of cubic feet of water per second. So we're adding a teaspoon of water into the bathtub of Little Walnut Creek with this project. And this water's flowing there now. It's just not doing it as efficiently as what our standards would expect.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Any questions for Mr. DeWitt? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor of the petition? I want to make sure that we hear anyone new first. Does anyone else who has not spoken wish to speak in favor of the petition? Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
I have 3 neighbors who could not come today. Kathy McGee.
Yes.
I have 3 neighbors that could not come today, but they wanted to be sure to send letters. I don't know if I can read those in front of you, if I give those to you. but I have 3 others that own property.
We'll ask our attorney.
So the statute allows comments to be made at the hearing or submitted in writing, filed with the clerk. So anything that was in writing should have been filed with the clerk.
So I can give those to her?
Well, they should have been filed, before the hearing. That's
Yeah,
my point.
before the hearing, yeah.
I wasn't aware, and obviously they weren't either.
That would have been in the letter.
Yeah,
Thank-
thank you.
My apologies.
And sir, you wish to, again, your name?
Again, Dave Smith, number 21. Yeah, if you look at the costs analysis on this, I mean, a majority of it's being paid by the north side of the road. So some of the, north lots there may have a problem with the cost because they can't see what they're, they don't have flooding in their yard. They don't have flooding in their basement, whatnot. But ultimately, all of that land is flowing into that, it's all flowing in the same direction to the south there. That south side, their costs are minimal compared to our north side, and I just wanted to state that, yes, it seems like we wouldn't get a big benefit on the north side, but everybody's water is flowing to the same place on the south, whether they want to believe it or not, so.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks.
much. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the petition? Would you please come forward? One more time, if anyone wants to speak in opposition to the petition. Okay,
I would suggest we close the hearing.
all right, if the clerk could read the,
Resolution number 22-366, in the matter of closing the public hearing to address the Kingston Township Watershed number 2017-2 Drainage Improvement Project.
So move.
Second?
discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-366. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye,
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye. May I comment?
thank you.
These are all different, and that's the reason I posed some of the questions I posed earlier. But the criteria in which we make our evaluation is pretty straightforward. Whether the board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare, and the board also finds that it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvements will be less than the benefits. That criteria is clear to me that the petition should be approved. And the comments regarding the public welfare, I think it was illustrated by a couple of examples about young people, children, grandchildren in foster care. So I think that addresses the public welfare part of it. But even if you accept the fact, as my initial question was, that the benefits might be overstated regarding the agriculture areas, the benefits are far in excess of that as far as what impact it will have on these homes, the basements, the value of those homes, et cetera, et cetera. And I appreciate the neighbors to the north, the comments that were made by, I believe, Dave, that you don't necessarily see the problem if you're far north, but you are part of the problem because it is also your water that's flowing into that area creating the problem. And that's something that comes up very routinely. Normally, we have to say that. I appreciate you saying it for us because that is a huge part of the issue, and to me, this is very clear, and I very much will support the petition.
Yeah, I guess I would echo Commissioner Merrill's comments. This is an easy one. Clearly, there's a problem. Clearly, there's public welfare issues, and the costs of all the work and sump pumps and construction and so on, are very, very expensive, and this is necessary. So this is sometimes, sometimes these are difficult. They really are. Is the cost worth it? But this one is an easy one in my mind.
I totally support what the other two commissioners have said, and I ask the clerk please to read motion in favor of granting the petition.
Resolution number 22-367, in the matter of finding in favor of the improvement and affirming the order for the Kingston number 2017-2 Watershed Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 22-367, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-368, in the matter of Commissioners confirming the assessment, approving the payment schedule, and ordering the letting of contracts for the Kingston number 2017-2 Watershed Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 22-368, Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your civility and your comments and for showing up today. Appreciate everything, and I have great confidence in our soil and water and the quality of work that they do. This will really help. So thank you for coming. And the hearing is over. We do have executive session.
Okay.
We're- Yes.
Resolution number 22-369, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of appointment of a public employee or public official to consider the purchase of property for public purpose and for pending or imminent litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-369. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
We are now recessed.